Is frivolous divorce overstated in the manosphere? Here's my correction. So yeah, you see, December 20th, 2011, manosphere reference. I'm like, that kind of lines up with my 2012 thing, but it's not 100% accurate. So I should probably say 2011. But yeah, the Mother Jones article was 2012, but it was like February, I think it was. So it's all around this same time that the manosphere got created as a psyop to vilify men by turning us into a collective, like fucking communists. So he's making a reference here. Susan Walsh. Here's one thing I don't know, but I'm going to look up. Is that Susan Walsh who I think it is? Born in 1960, disappeared July 16th, 1996. Oh. Wait, is that the right one? Or is this Matt Walsh's wife? Does anybody know? I already put the Tate one on right at the beginning. Grim Reaper comment about frivolous divorce. Yeah, you guys know this one. The fact that guys are blindsided by it and girls plan earlier. Susan's like, give me stats or shut up. Again. Well, how about if women get to eat first at the table, they can set the place for men and serve them there. Irrational anger is the only response. This is why you shouldn't argue with women about this stuff. And this is the funny part too. So if you read Practical Female Psychology, which came out in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, you'll notice that Dalrock actually brings up the same thing. The betification of men process that I was talking about before. He just words it slightly differently, and this is what I love about the red pill is when you see convergent evidence. It's a bit of a digression here, but focus me. So you'll see, again, push for commitment, get what they want, lose interest in sex, become attracted to somebody else, start cheating, become angry and resentful, tell the partners they need the airtime, blame the partner for the behavior, and eventually leave. Right there. That is very similar to the betification process. So instead of pushing for commitment, he misses the initial part, which is like the testing the male for fitness phase. Push for commitment. They get him to open up, get the validation. They get what they want. And this right here, putting him to work phase. He gets these stages. Like, this is actually one stage. This is the evolutionary selfishness. Losing interest in sex, pushing back, nothing's ever good enough, whatever. And then this here is the self-determination, where they start to secure a new mate. So that's what I love here. So you get guys like Dalrock doesn't read David, Clare, or Franco. He doesn't care about any of that shit. But from a completely different avenue, him looking up statistics and marriage patterns over time and the Christian way of dealing with it and other bloggers, he comes to the same conclusions that David Clare does and Franco. And so that kind of lets you know, okay, there's something about this. Now, they may not be refined. We might find out in a later case that Dalrock's not right. He's missing some stuff. Maybe Claire's missing some stuff. But generally speaking, they're both fuzzily on point. And then as these things evolve, these things get more refined. Maybe you'll find a third guy out there who has a reference to something. And that's what I love. Men swapping notes. When you get men swapping notes, you get examples of convergent evidence. And when you get examples of convergent evidence, you're going to find, more often than not, the things you find out are right to a point. And the issue isn't that they're right or wrong. It's that they need refinement. And this is why I cannot stand White Claw Power Hour bullshit, because they are wearing this process as a skin suit. And it's taking valuable time and valuable men away from more notes. Like, I'll tell you right now, the red pill space hasn't come up with anything useful since like 2017. Not because there's nothing useful to discover, but because everybody's busy being a fucking clown on Instagram. Yeah. Anyways, back to this. So the women sometimes responded with a kind of counter manipulation. They thought if they were cold and treated their husbands terribly, the men would leave or ask them to leave. Sometimes this happens, which incidentally explains why divorce initiation statistics can be misleading. A significant portion of the roughly 30% of divorces, which are formally male-initiated, result from the wife deliberately maneuvering her husband into taking the step. That sounds familiar. It should, because I think it was 2014. Rollo came out with that article, Please Break Up With Me. And the Married Red Pill in 2016 came out with Killing the Puppy. It's the same thing. Well, women initiate 70% of divorces. Yeah, and women were cunts for the other 30%. Men in general don't leave their women unless the women give them a very good reason to. We are fiercely loyal in that way. We are stupidly loyal in that way. So something to think about. Is frivolous divorce overstated? They're always frivolous. I think he gets about here where he talks about I'm not happy either. I mean, I can't remember. It's been a while. Women initiators, even the husband files. 5 years, 2K. Okay, so it's an example to drive home the point. And then, where's the one I'm looking for? And this ties into Threatpoint, where they talk about the results are consistent with the hypothesis that filing behavior is driven by self-interest at the time of divorce. And that was the idea that Dalrock had. Okay, so if it's self-interest at the time of divorce, at certain age groups, who benefits? And you can go back to Rollo's SMV chart he has. You know the one where girls peak at like 20 and then drop off the cliff, aka the wall, when they hit 30. Meanwhile, guys don't really hit their stride and peak until like 35, and then it's a slow decline afterwards. So that lets you know if divorce was happening earlier, it would be more beneficial to the women, which means even if women weren't initiating divorces, they were encouraging their men to do that by acting like absolute bitches. If it was later on in the process, then it would be beneficial to men. Therefore, men are most likely the ones initiating, or at least benefiting by it. Yeah, there's periods in which each spouse benefits from honoring the agreement more than the other one does. And that's when he looks like, okay, let's look into it. He looks at England, Wales, divorce rate by age of the woman, and divorce rate by age of the men. You can't just do like a straight up chart because men and women aren't married at the same ages. They don't always marry when they're both 18. So you have to separate them by gender, which most people don't do. The fact that he did here was pretty impressive. But yeah, so you look at the divorce rate. Again, the divorce rate is primed at the under 30 demographic. Do you guys remember that epiphany phase of Rollo? Where it's like women at 25 to 29 start to have baby rabies, or 28 to 32, the epiphany phase. You notice this? They're having fun, playing around, divorce the guy during the baby raby phase because they want to find a guy to settle down with. In the US, same thing. Men would be getting divorced at about 35 then. Divorces would be happening here if it was a case that men were leaving chicks for younger versions of themselves. What are they finding? The exact opposite. Guys are giving girls their peak fertility years. I gave you my best years. Remember that bitching? I gave him my best years and he left me. Well, it turns out guys are actually doing that. I'm giving you my peak years, madam. And all you have to do is not be a cunt. And the women are like, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. So when I talk about this stuff, I don't want to, who asked, blah, blah, blah. Okay, blah, 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 blah. I don't think there was anything more from that, no. So let's, you know what, let's just get rid of this. Let's just you and me talk at the end here. I don't think we need any stats to block the window. It's just you and me. Have a heart to heart. Man to man. Mano a mano. Mas a menos. Come see a come sa. So the takeaway from this stuff is frame. It really is fundamentally important, and it's hard. You can't market it that way because I can't draw the conclusion to work out, shave your balls, pick a nice cologne, be deliberate about your actions, tying it to that. But fundamentally, if you're one of those guys that lets life happen to you as opposed to living life according to your own best interests, these trends are important because this shows you what you're most likely to experience. If you just go and think, oh, whatever, I don't need to be good at this. I don't need to develop frame. I don't need to have game. I don't need to look good. I don't need abundance. I just need to be a good, loyal husband and a good job and a good wife. And then whatever happens, happens. Well, that's what's going to happen. Increasingly so. It might not happen. Nothing's ever 100%, but I just don't understand where, like, you only get one life. Why would you take chances like this? Other than laziness, because you know what I mean? Something as simple as working out and standing up for yourself can alleviate 80% of that. 80%. That's why I'm always focused on hit the gym, eat right, have some frames, have some boundaries. Boundaries and covert contracts are huge. Why? Because 80% of that is guys having covert contracts, getting resentful when they aren't filled out, not having boundaries and letting their women run roughshod on them when they don't even want to. That's the funniest part. The women don't even want to be cunty. There's not a woman on this earth who would not drop everything in her life to be with a top-tier man in her eyes and have him be fiercely loyal and love her till the day she dies. Not a single... I don't care who you are. You could be the cuntiest cunt ever. You could be Kate 2.0. You could be anybody. Nothing is going to stop a girl from wanting that. We're human beings. Everything else is cope. So when they're acting bitchy, when they're nagging, and when they want to cheat on you and all this stuff, there's something in there, in their mental hard wiring that's not helping. Like it used to. This is where I talk about the concept of sexual diabetes. And this is where the next point's going to be in.
Name a bigger red flag than a white guy with a podcast. I'll wait.
I am not impressed. I will have you know, I'm like 80% white. The podcast is goddamn good, and I don't want you anyway. You got random Iroquois art and not art on your walls. You're not my type, sir. Or madam. I don't know, you're allowed to say anymore? Bless that mulleted man. Sexy bitch. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, sexual diabetes. So I've talked about the concept before. I think I've written about it. I can't remember if it was in Fuck Files or Frame though. Is it bad when you can't remember what's in your books anymore? Like all the details? I guess that's why I wrote it down, so I wouldn't have to remember it. But sexual diabetes is where a previous instinct that used to serve a vital function in our lives no longer does it. Adapt or die kind of thing. And diabetes is a great example of what I mean. So in Paleolithic times, back when we were just cavemen or primates and whatever, living was hard. Calories were hard to find. Everything wanted to eat you. So if you used up too much energy, you would die. And we ended up developing certain evolutionary habits. The first one was a sweet tooth, because simple carbohydrates were great for energy. And that energy allowed us to hunt, which allows us to kill animals and eat meat and make houses and sleep with wives and all that. It was basically free calories for free energy. So people who were more addicted to sugar and simple carbohydrates were the ones that tended to survive, because they were sitting there chewing on bananas, while the guys that didn't like it would just die off because of lack of calories. Worked great until 1850 and industrialization happened. What happened there? We separated labor from productivity. It turns out our ability to get calories and our ability to expend calories no longer coincided. They weren't in sync. Now with a barrel of oil, we can fill 20,000 man hours, which makes a hell of a lot of sugar. So what happens is our technology is advancing at like year over year, but our evolved survival strategies are evolving eon over eon. So way faster, the amount of calories we can get versus the amount of calories we stop being enamored by. So what happens from that? You eat too much sugar. The body's not prepared for it. What does it do? Insulin shuts down, you get diabetes, and you die. So that's an easy way to understand it. Sugar, which used to be a survival instinct, is now killing us. And the same thing is happening when it comes to like our sexual strategies. It's sexual diabetes. This stuff all worked great when we were Paleolithic tribes going here, there, and everywhere. This stuff all worked great when we were an agricultural society. Everybody was a farmer. Everybody lived in rural areas. You needed lots of kids early on because you were bored and there was nothing else to do but have sex. And you needed those kids to help you on the farm. But now we're in an age where none of that matters. Productivity and labor are completely detached. You can get the strongest guy in the world. What's he doing? He's a bouncer at a bar and he's loading trucks. You get this weak, effeminate soy boy who's conflict averse. What's he doing? He's running a billion-dollar company. Productivity and labor are absolutely not attached at all. And then what's happening on that? Women can work, and they can work well, and they're effective, and even when they're not effective. But the point is, we're acting as if they are, and that's good enough for me. We can argue if they are or they're not. Save that for your little misogynistic white claw power hour. I don't care. Women are running shit right now. Women can earn their own things. Women no longer need provision because they can handle provision on their own. They're not doing the drudgery of labor because they have dishwashers and now they have corporate jobs. And now that all this stuff is here, well, what is it you want? Well, I want alpha fucks and beta bucks. I want a man who's like top tier genetics, socially above me on the hierarchy, Like all those physical desirable traits are there. What about the provision traits? Like, I can do that myself. A woman's corporate job is the vibrator for beta bucks. Just have it in her locker, pull it out every now and again, get that itch scratched. Which sucks for guys, because now we have sexual diabetes. We still think we're in the 1800s. And, you know, a good farming, strapping man who's willing to work hard and fight off bears and protect his family and provide is what women want right now. And some still do. But it's not even useful anymore. It's more of like wearing it as like a luxury brand. Like if you watch all of the trads who want to bake bread and cook, like what was that one chick? She called it fourth wave feminism. It's like feminism, but I bake bread and I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, oh, fair enough. Can't wait for fifth wave feminism. Jesus. But yeah, like I don't need a man anymore. And so when she wants to be a stay-at-home wife, it's not because that's necessity. Because, oh, somebody's got to beat the clothes against the rock to get them clean. Somebody's got to raise all the kids and homeschool them. Somebody has to cook food while you're toiling the fields. They're doing it as a lifestyle choice. Right now, the stay-at-home mom is no different than furries. It's a lifestyle choice. It's a luxury brand that we can do because we can afford to. Women can afford to stay at home and do nothing because they're hot enough that they can find a man who will provide for her and do it. But she doesn't need it. It's not an attraction quality. It's a lifestyle choice. Oh, they might have been. I don't know. I'm reading Tully's thing here. So now that you know these things are all lifestyle choices, and this is, again, there's tons of spheres where this goes. Things that were absolutely essential end up turning into rituals, end up turning into like lifestyles, end up turning into social signaling. It's signaling theory. And as far as like red-pilled tendrils and what sciences they're attached to, evo-psych and mate theory, I would argue signaling theory is really in there and it doesn't get enough love. So yeah, what's the point of this one? Sexual diabetes. So what does that mean? Well, that means you got to lean in on the attraction behaviors, the alpha fuck side, and not necessarily not do any of the provision side because the instinct is still there, but it's needed to a far less developed level in today's modern societies than you'd think. And now you can be one of those guys that's like, yeah, but when the zombies come, they're going to need a guy who can farm and still booze. And they're like, all right, maybe. But for hundreds of years, guys have been sitting here waiting for the apocalypse, prepping their whole lives around it. So far, not one guy has been right on their calls for apocalypse. So do what you got to do. Trad is trending. Women follow. That's what they do. Trad is a lifestyle choice, man. Trad right now is a lifestyle choice. What happened? San Francisco rich boys off of tech stuff are going to Stardew Valley and buy a farm. They're not traditional conservative. They're traditional conservative in the way Coke and Pepsi. Coke is the real thing. Pepsi's the real thing. Oh, that's all it is. So what's the point of this? What's the take home from the sexual diabetes side? You just got to understand the trends. So when people tell you things, don't worry about what they're saying. Worry about their attitude. Yeah, women love being submissive and they love being traditional. It's like maybe. But do you remember what we said earlier with the Dalrock's example of the Girl Scouts? When it was men letting them eat first, they were very passive when it came to the feminine imperatives. So when things were going well for them in the equality side of the equation. As soon as you look for actual equality or even, heaven forbid, reciprocity, that's when the claws come out. So this stay-at-home mom thing sounds like a great idea. But then, what else was involved with being a stay-at-home mom? Well, they didn't have pregnancy tests back then, so you had to kind of date yourself a virgin. Well, no. I should be able to play the field and then be a stay-at-home mom. All right, fair enough. What about you cook and clean for me? No, man. I'm going to finger fuck this tablet. We should hire a maid. Do you know how many guys out there have stay-at-home moms that can afford it and then hire her a maid to make life easy for her? Like, it's fucking ridiculous. I still can't believe that. Oh, yeah, Stardew Valley was awesome. Doesn't mean I want to live it for myself. I went the opposite route. I was on a farm and I moved to the city. I'm never going back. Do you know how much hard work sucks? Do you know how much arthritis sucks? Never going back to the ranch, sir. Never. So we are going... So that's the takeaway. All of this stuff has nothing to do with real life. This is all choices. And women love equality when they're getting their side of the equation. And they will lash out against it emotionally when they're not getting their side. So here, you want your trad wife, you get your trad wife. Here's a little experiment you can run to see if I'm right or I'm just bullshitting you. Because I might be. You never know. I could just be a grifter. And all my haters is because they're making more money than me. And all that shit that haters say on Twitter is true. You find yourself a good stay-at-home mom, you know, like in the cornfield with their ass hanging out like most traditional women are. Instagram in a cornfield, sun hat goddess, that kind of thing. Notice when you start doing your side of the traditional conservative stuff, they love it. Start putting some expectations onto her side of the traditional paradigm and see what kind of responses you get. Now, if you get a good girl, like say for Allie, stay-at-home mom, you make some fucking food. You know, you be loyal to me, do all the traditional stuff that you want out of a marriage. And if all of a sudden they start pushing back on that, realize that you're not there with an ally. You're there with somebody who's wearing trad as a skin suit. Always trust on actions. And it's weird.